Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Coach Matt over here, Primal Athlete Training Center, www.primalatc.com. Continuing with our In a Perfect World video series up on YouTube. And today we're going to be talking about sort of a continuation of what we did in the last video. Last video we talked about how to schedule your daily practices on days when you're in the weight room and you don't have a lot of time out on the track and out at the circles. Well, today we're going to be talking about what seems to be the easier part, but sometimes there's some kind of confusion with the athletes and the coaches as far as what they should be doing. And that is, in a perfect world, how should you schedule your daily practices when you are out at the track and when you are out in the circles for the entire time of practice? So you're not going in the weight room, you're not breaking off, you're not doing anything, weird or different. It's just a full day where you are out at practice for the entire time. So like we said the other day, in a perfect world, my practice would be 2.5 hours long. The first 15 minutes of practice, that is going to be a general warm-up with the entire team. The next 15 minutes is going to be a specific warm-up where each event will break off and go to its event coaches. Jumpers will go with the jumps coach, sprinters with the sprints coach, throwers with the throws coach, etc. Now, what that does is that leaves 2 hours where you are going to be out as a throws coach. You're going to be out in the circle with your throwers. And a lot of times you think, well, I've got 2 hours. I've got a ton of time to get stuff done. But sometimes without having that structure, without having something to do every hour or every half an hour, you get a little bit out of control. You get a little bit confused. You lose track of time. You don't get to go to certain events as much as you'd like to. And you get a little bit thrown off track. No pun intended. So this is what we want to do. When you have now that 2 hours left of your practice, you want to separate your athletes into their each individual throwing events. So what you want to do initially is you want to take all of your throwers and you want to write their name on a piece of paper. So right on the left side of the paper, write every athlete's name that you work with, every thrower that you work with. Say there's 40 kids. Every single thrower, every single athlete that you work with, write down their name on the side of the paper. And then next to their name, write down what events they do. So some of them might just do shot put. Some of them might do shot and discus. Some might do shot, discus, and javelin. Some might do discus and javelin. Whatever the combination of events that they do, write down their events next to their name. Then what you need to do is try to evenly break up that group of 40 throwers or however many you have into separate events so that you don't have an overloaded amount of kids at each event. So for example, say you have 25 out of 40 kids do shot put. Well, you don't want to start all 25 kids over in the shot circle. You want to start with, say, 15 of those kids at the shot circle. The other throwers you want to separate and put them, some in discus, some over in javelin, so you have a good amount. Say you have 10 javelin throwers, 15 discus throwers, 15 shot putters. Now, what you're going to do is they're going to be at that station for the first hour of practice. That's their primary event. Now, once the first hour is over, for the next half an hour, you're going to send those athletes to their secondary event. So more than likely, you're going to have a bunch of javelin throwers that just do javelin. That's fine. They can stay at javelin. Some of those javelin throwers might do discus. At that time, they're going to switch. Javelin throwers that do discus will head to discus. Discus throwers that want to go to javelin will go to javelin. Discus throwers that want to do shot will go to shot. Shot putters that want to do discus will go to discus. Everyone will switch for their secondary event of the day. And that event is for a half an hour. So that leaves a half an hour at the end of practice where you can do your sprinting drills, your explosive movement drills, your med balls, your stretching, your hurdle hops, your box jumps, whatever you want to do at the end of practice. That half an hour is left at the end of practice for you to do that. Now, the other days during the week where the athletes are not in the weight room and they're out at the track, other days similar to the day that we just talked about, if they did shot as their primary event and discus as their secondary event, whatever they did for their secondary event, that's now going to be the primary event. That way, you're able to spend as much time during the week and evenly separate the time. Now, you're going to be asking yourself, well, when I've got kids over at shot for an hour, kids over at discus for an hour, kids over at javelin for an hour. What am I doing? There's only one of me. What am I doing? What you're going to do is spend a half an hour at each event. So whoever has the most amount of athletes that day, say it's discus. Say discus, you've got 17 kids over at discus. First half an hour of practice, you're going to go to discus. You're going to coach those kids for a half an hour, and then you're going to leave them with homework, stuff they should be working on for the second half an hour of that day. When you have kids over at shot, now you're not over at shot because you're over at discus for the first half an hour. So half an hour of shot, you're going to tell those kids what you want them to do, and then you're going to switch, and you're going to go over to shot for the second half an hour of your practice. Third half an hour of your practice, you've got your javelin. You're going to go over to javelin for half an hour. And the last half an hour, that's that free kind of wild card half an hour where you're going to be able to do whatever you want. Okay? So while your athletes are spending an hour at their primary event, a half an hour at their secondary event, and a half an hour at sort of a wild card, whatever you want to do, you're going to be moving around every half an hour. So a half an hour at shot, half an hour at disc, half an hour at javelin, half an hour wild card. Okay? That way you know that you're spending enough time with your athletes, you're moving around with your athletes, you're seeing everybody at a pretty equal basis, and your athletes are getting the coaching that they deserve and that they need, and you're balancing out those 3 events. Now, I know what people are going to say. Well, hey, I don't have 40 kids. I've got 50 kids. I don't have 3 events. I've got 2 events. If you're in Rhode Island and you're a hammer coach as well, you've got 4 events that you have to separate. This is what I'm talking about with this Perfect World series. In a perfect world, this is how it would work out. We know that you don't have a perfect world. So you need to take the guidelines that I'm giving you, these ideas that I'm giving you in these videos, and try to apply it as best as you possibly can to whatever scenario you have at your school. You only have an hour and a half of practice, make it work. You've got 100 kids, make it work. You coach 4 events, make it work. Try to take these guidelines and break it up into your world so that you can turn your practices into as much of a perfect world as you possibly can. All right? Keep the questions in the comments coming. Make sure to leave them down below this YouTube video, and I'll answer them in a future video. Talk to you all real soon.